Your mechanic is pretty cool.
Thank you.
The question though is, and I think you understand a little bit of this, is how perspectives can be pretty difficult to understand. So just looking at your prototype, the question that I had was that seeing as perspective, or I guess the size of your object is determined based on the distance from the viewpoint. How is distance and perspective and the size of your object related? Considering that, like, you know, it can be big but far away, but also, like, can it be big and close by? Like, how is that working, and how are you solving those?
Yeah. Thank you very much for the clarification. And I'll kind of re-explain it because I think I stumbled a bit over it in the presentation. But essentially how it works is the concept is when you pick up the object and move it around in the space, it's supposed to appear as if it's the same size. What's actually happening, the mathematical calculation that's going behind it, is that it's actually physically moving it in the space and scaling it based on the plane behind it. It's just doing a raycast and checking what's behind it and trying to make it appear the same. But in reality, if you look at it from another perspective, that shape is actually moving closer or farther away towards the player and scaling at the same time. So it's there's two things going on. Like, the way I like to explain it is that we know that this mic is right here, and we know it's set size. Our depth perception can tell us that. But the concept is, what if we could mess with that? What if I could, keep it as if you think it's the same size, but it's actually getting bigger and smaller? Does that kind of clarify what you're talking about? Or
Sure. And are you managing distance through the scroll wheel, as you said, or are you
Yeah,
just
well,
So
that's one of the things we want to give the player more control. After seeing Pillow Castle's demo and doing a lot of playtesting for this, as it's an intermediate game, we learned that players like to have more control over less control. So we think a scroll wheel would be a perfect place to add that that extra sense of control.
Yeah, and specifically what we plan for that is it's not necessarily going to scale it, but it'd move it closer or farther away. The scroll wheel action specifically.
Tracy.
Yeah, you guys familiar with museum simulation technology?
Yes, that was one of our inspirations.
Pillow is the original concept, and they changed it to museum simulation technology. Yeah, that was the icon in the bottom right hand corner, and that's
it's
one
the
of our
elephant in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because obviously it's exactly the same.
I think at this point, and I think our goal here is to try and convince you that we want to go in a different direction with it. And I think any questions specifically I can try and answer. We'll go.
So why aren't you doing it on a tablet?
Not because mouse and WASD keyboards are just kind of more.
The control input we currently kind of had planned. It doesn't necessarily work for that. I could see an option because you have to be able to move it around and scale. It could work.
I
Yeah.
seem to know things that I can move around and do all those things.
I agree with
with
you.
the touch.
I agree with you 100%. I think a story-based game about perspective that you can touch and manipulate, even if you have to simplify a little bit of your puzzle mechanic, first of all, it differentiates you, and second of all, the market is...
There's a market.
There is one.
Huh. Well, that's a very interesting suggestion. We'll definitely take that into consideration because I think that's very good.
Yes. Agreed with
That
right, sure.
the mechanic is similar to things that we've seen elsewhere. Are you going to actually pull in that narrative stuff? You talked about the narrative, it sounds really cool. How do you pull that in and actually explain that to players while they're trying to solve these puzzles and this complex mechanic? What ways do you plan on introducing narrative?
Alright, so have you ever played Assassin's Creed?
Yeah.
Alright, so you know how he kind of exits the Animus and then there's that kind of gray state where he's exploring? We want to put Rose into that state where she's slowly learning how to control it. And that's how we're going to unravel the experience to achieve that ramp of difficulty. So she'll slowly get one ability and then another. She'll learn that she can scale some things and not other things.
Rose is also going to kind of progress through the levels as a means. The story we have currently outlined is that she is currently she for her entire life figured she was an orphan and she was alone in the world, and she finds out that she might have a relative somewhere hiding in the ward, and that these three doctors that help her gain her superpowers are those three people who might be able to help her find her sister. And so that's also kind of the more narrative element that we're working on. And just as we kind of go to the slides really quickly, but I'm actually a double major in film production and interactive media, so story is something that's super important to me, and I'm going to spend a lot of time on it. In the back.
So first of all, congrats on making a super clone of Pillow Castle. And secondly, the narrative is okay, but what about gameplay? I don't see any new innovation in terms of gameplay in your game.
Alright, well, to answer your question directly is thank you for complimenting us, but there are different things in this. Like Pillow Castle, you can rotate and stuff. We don't. We ditched that idea and we stuck with cubes. And now there's things you can only do once. So you have that idea of having to restart. And then there's things you can only move, and I
Yeah,
mean,
I
that
think
in
further
itself
too,
is a
and-
difference.
You know, again, this is something I said was not in our demo, is that we want to mess a lot more with optical illusions, fixed perspective in terms of having a complete visual puzzles.
Non-Euclidean.
Not, you know, and also tying that in with non-Euclidean geometry.
Last
Alright.
question.
Yeah, I was noticing one of the things you guys were talking about was having a really kind of robust environment, especially with optical illusions, but you don't really have a lot of artists on the team, and so I'm curious as to what your plan is if you don't get those artists, and how you can kind of still tell the story that you want to tell without, you know, kind of the same assets that you might want to do with it.
Totally fair question. Yes. So yeah, we don't have any artists currently attached to the project, but that's our number one goal right now, is trying to do that. You know, first of all, we looking, you know, searching far and wide within the school, and then also going outside the school to see if there are other options, other art colleges around, which I know AGPs in the past have, you know, utilized that. Obviously, we're going to need a lead inside to do that, but I think that's something we're willing to adapt on the fly if we determine, you know, we need more or less artists, and we need, you know, work on the art star, simplifying it. That's something we're prepared to do.
Can I just chime in and say that although you guys don't have artists, I want to compliment you on the look and feel of your demo. It's one of the best I've seen in that respect.
Can I also jump on that answer?
Thank
If
you.
I wasn't in the interactive program, or sorry everyone who was interactive, I wanted to be an animation major, so I'm really into like 3D programming and stuff, and it's something that Sam and I have talked about, that if we can't find a lead, I'm willing to step down from whatever my role is now to become a lead 3D artist.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, 217.